ready to move house, I found my old rock tumbler. Now this must be about 30 years old. And I got some rocks as well, look. They're all different sorts, not sure what they are. I never really knew. And I think they would make great jewellery once they're polished up. But I want to do something a little bit different with them. So some of them I will use for wire wrapping, and some of them, which is what I'm going to show in this video, once they've been tumbled, I'm going to do some engraving on them. I want them to be nice rounded edges before I put the engraving on them, so that it doesn't wear down the engraving. I think this will be a great project, and I think it's going to make some wonderful jewellery. I've also got some smaller ones, which I will pop in there as well. So it's easy to get started, and you can get rock tumblers so cheap now. You're better off buying a kit. The National Geographic one looks awesome. So what I'm going to do is link that one in the bottom. Now this is the tumbling thing that I'm going to put in here. I'm going to look at all these rocks. I might as well tumble them all, and the little bits, because that helps to grind them down. And I'm also going to put some of these little bits in. Now you should really do kind of similar sort of hardness of rocks, but who's got time to be sorting that out? So there's a variety of sizes in there, and you need different grits and powders to polish them up. I go from an 80 grit to a 220 to 400, and then to the polishing compound. But you can get this in kits and packs anyway, but if you get the National Geographic one, it comes all included in it. So I need to put my 80 grit in there. Now I'm a bit short on this, so I'm going to put it all in, and I've just ordered some more. So if it doesn't grind these down very well, I will pop some more in. And now I need to put some water in it. So I'm going to put quite a bit of water in this, so that well covers those stones. Put my little lid back on, put my washer in there. This is not a quick hobby to get this done, so you kind of have to put it somewhere and then forget about it for a little while. And I'm going to tighten that down as much as I can, and that will not leak. Honestly, I promise you it won't leak. And then, as I said, this is quite an old one. All I need to do is pop that onto there, plug it in, let that roll. And that will roll now like that. I'll let that keep going for about a week, then I'll check it. If they've made nice shapes, they're polished down enough, then I can do the engraving and follow on the rest of the bits. Well, this has been tumbling for a week now, a week today, so I'm quite looking forward to seeing what they look like. If you're doing rock tumbling, never ever pour this slurry or whatever sludge down the drain, because it will set like concrete and it will cause your drains all to be blocked. Now I put a lot more water in that than you would normally have, but the next one I won't. The next time I do it, I won't. This is the worst possible bowl I could have used for this. I mean, I can't hook my thing on it, look. Let's do it like that. Now I'm going to rinse those off. So what I shall do is I'll let all the water evaporate off this, or I'll pour it outside in the garden. And it's not going to hurt being in the garden. At the end of the day, it's only stone. But these stones, oh, that has come out beautiful. Tiger's eye, that is absolutely stunning. So what I'm now going to do is clean these. And how I'm going to do that is by rinsing this out properly. So rinse that out completely, and then I'll show you what I'm going to do next. So I've rinsed these and cleaned these, and they've come up really, really nice. And now I have to make a decision on which ones I'm going to engrave on and which ones I'm going to wire wrap. So these are the ones I think I'm going to engrave on. God, look at that. That's beautiful. So these are the ones I've put aside that I think are going to look nice engraved. I'm just going to go through them again. That one's going to look lovely. That one's going to look lovely. This kind of gives them an indication of what they're going to look like once they're polished, because they're wet. But when they dry, obviously, they're nowhere near polished. Look, so you can really see the difference. But when they're wet, they're lovely. These are the ones I'm going to engrave in. It's fairly easy to do if you've got a Dremel. And it doesn't really cost an awful lot either, because the bits are fairly cheap. So before I do anything else, what I'm going to do is, using a Sharpie, is quickly decide where I want to have things. So this one is one I'm going to engrave into and then wire wrap. And all I want to have going around this is a bit of a spiral from, oh, definitely that way. So that's going to be the back. So I'm going to put a bit of a spiral. Too worried if it's even spiral or not. But going around it like that. And then that'll give me some sort of guide when I come to carving this out. I think I'm going to do a double spiral. So I'm also going to come round there like that. And across there like that. So that's now got a spiral on it. Something like this, I'm going to also decide which is the back and which is the front. I think this has to be the front, this side. And all I'm going to do on that one is quite a simple, almost like an eye shape, like that. This one is one I polished a long time ago. As you can see, it's got a nice polish on it. And I just think I really like that shape, but I'm not sure what to do with it. So I'm going to have a little bit of think, mark some more up, and then what I'll do is I'll show you how I'm going to engrave them. I've got these marked up now, and where I've put a little dot on, that's where I want to drill a hole in them. So I'm going to drill a hole in those ones, and that one. And these I'm going to wire wrap at a later stage. So this is how I'm going to carve into them. I've got myself some diamond bits for my Dremel. I'm going to work in a little pot of water, because that's going to keep it nice and cool and prevent it overheating, burning up these little diamond bits. These weren't very expensive at all. And the first thing to do is drill my holes. As you can see, it's drilling quite quickly through there. So that's drilled in there quite quickly, and the water's kept it nice and cool, and the drill bit still seems to be very well covered in the diamond bits. And that's drilled a really nice, neat hole through there. And then with further polishing, that's going to polish that hole up lovely. Look at that hole. Beautiful, neat hole. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish off drilling the other ones where I need a hole in them before I start to do these bits, and I'll show you what I'm going to do for those bits. So I've drilled the holes. Now, unfortunately, I did have a problem with these. I don't know whether it was because there was faults in the crystal, or it was the way I was drilling the holes, but both of these snapped off. So what I did was I used this one, and I've got the hole in it, and I've done the eye on that one. And these ones I will just wire wrap and probably do something a little bit more fancy with that. But I don't want to waste this, so all I'm going to do with this one, just smooth this off a little bit. So when it goes back into the tumbling machine, then it'll be okay, and it should come out and none the wiser. And then gently carving into this, but keep dipping it in water. Now I could work in the water as well, but it soon clouds up and you then can't see what you're doing. Now I want these to be deep enough that once they've been in the tumbling machine again to polish up, this engraving stays where it is, so you can still see the engraving. But it doesn't take an awful lot to get a nice deep engraving on there. And you've got a nice deep engraving on there. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to engrave the rest, and then I will go through what my next stage is to get these polished up. Well, I've finished carving these and engraving these now, and they've come out really well. Hopefully, once they've gone through the next stage of polish, they will look great as well. I'm going to mix them in with the other rocks that I'd already done on stage one. There we go. So they're in there, and now I'm going to cover them with water just so they're covered. And then I've got 220 grit carbide here, silicon carbide, and I'm going to put 2 heat level spoonfuls of that in there. I made sure I give this a good clean so there was no 80 grit left in it, because I don't want that scratching up and working against that 220 grit that I've just put in. Pop the top on, and then I'm going to tumble this for a week, and then we can check it, and hopefully it'll have got to the next stage. Well, this has been going for another week now, and I need to take this top off so that we can see what's going on. I'm always nervous at this stage that maybe I've overground them, or they're broken, or any number of things that could happen to them. So as much as it's a real surprise and interesting, it can also be a bit heartbreaking sometimes as well. So I'm going to pour that in there, because again, let's not pour this anywhere near the sink or anything like that. And this should have smoothed off and softened off all those little engravings that I did. So let's pick out some of those. Okay, so I definitely think I should have took these out a couple of days earlier, because some of these now have lost the little engraving I did on them. So for instance, that one is the one that I did the eye on, and that's disappeared. I also did an eye on that one. I did lines going across that one, and they've lost that. But these ones where I've gone in deeper and the larger stones have still kept that interesting shape. So is that one and that one. And we are going to do something with these little interesting shapes anyway. And that one did as well. Oh no, look, there's one with the eye in. So that did come out. So I'm quite happy with those, although I am going to make these little grooves a little bit deeper in there using the same method before I put them on for the next stage. Well, I've cleaned up all my rocks now as well, and some of them I have gone over the actual pattern again a little bit more. And I think going forward, this is at the stage where I will put the pattern in or try and drill any holes, because they are much smaller and there's much more thinner pieces. So I've been able to drill holes in a lot more of them than I had before. Now what I'm going to do is the stage before the polish. So this is the pre-polish stage, I suppose. I don't know, I'm no expert at this. What I'm going to do is pop my stones in there, including the small ones as well, because it's good to have a mixture of sizes in there. Now, they've all had a really good clean. There's none of the previous grit on there, but I don't want these knocking together and hurting themselves and breaking. So what I'm going to do is add these little plastic balls in here as well for this next stage, which will kind of cushion them about. Fill them to just over the top of them, about half an inch over the top. And now I'm going to put in my 400 grit. And then I've got one stage after this for the polishing. So I'm going to not use as much grit on this now because there's nowhere near as much weight. So all I'm going to be using in there is about one, I mean, I couldn't have got a worse spoon, really, a soup spoon. There we go, that should be enough. And I'm going to let these polish now for 3 days and then check them again after 3 days. If they're not ready after 3 days, then I'll let them polish and tumble again for another couple of days. Now these have been rolling for another week, it's time to give them a clean and then put the last lot of polishing compound in there to make sure that they're nicely polished and all shiny. But what we must do first is clean these up to make sure there's absolutely none of this previous grit in there at all. We don't want to cause anything to scratch or damage any of these stones after we've worked so hard to get them to this stage. So I'm going to rinse them out a couple of times using some clean water, wash this out, and then I'm going to tumble them again for another 24 hours in this clean pot with a little bit of washing up liquid to make sure they're clean before I do the next stage. These have been chugging around there now for the last 24 hours cleaning, so I can just take these out like that and then give them a bit of a rinse. You can see, look, the dirt that still came off them, so it was well worth doing that. And that will make a massive difference to the polishing as well, because there won't be any little bits of grit in there or anything that are going to cause that to scratch up while they're polishing. Now, I'm going to stop using this one and I'm going to move over to this one, and this is the one I always keep for my polishing, and I know that because I have a little bumblebee on the lid so that it so I know which one it is. So I'm just going to pop these into here with the little plastic bits as well, as long as I can get most of them in, and that'll stop them banging the ground together too much and hitting each other and knocking each other out the way and chipping each other and all the other sorts of things that you can do when you knock yourselves together. Pop some water in that and then put the final polishing compound in there as well. And I'm going to put 1 heaped tablespoon of that polishing compound in there. Pop the lid on, seal it all off, and then let that do its thing by turning around now for probably a week. And then I'll show you what they all look like and how well they've come out and how I'm going to finish off some of them to make them really stand out and look amazing. Well, these stones have been polishing now for about a week. I'm not sure if they're going to be polished up enough, but the only way we're going to find that out is by checking on them. And if they need a little bit extra time, then I can put them in for a little bit extra time. Again, I'm going to pour them out into my colander and give them a bit of a rinse over. And now I can take one out, and while they're wet, they do look lovely and polished, of course. But we want them to look like that once they are dry. So now I'm going to take a couple out and let them dry and see if they're really shiny. And those are dry now, and they are beautiful and shiny, which is just what I want. So I'm going to clean the rest of them up by rinsing them through and giving them a bit of a wash, and then I'm going to show you how I'm going to convert some of them into jewellery. Well, these are all clean now, and they're ready to be turned into jewellery. Some of them I'm going to wire wrap, which is these ones, the larger ones that have got really shiny, and I will do that in a different video because I don't think this video needs to be any longer than it already is. But these ones, I'm going to quickly show you how I'm going to turn into jewellery. But before I do that, what I want to do is finish decorating these. And this is the one where I put the little holes in it, or the little indents. And for this one, I'm going to be using silver chrome pen. And because it'll be in the indents, that'll be lovely and safe in there. All I'm going to do is push some out onto the side there, like that. Get one of my little micro brushes that you know I love so much. And then pop that into one of these holes Now, you could do this in different colours if you wanted to. You could do it in gold. You could even do this in gold, bronze and silver if you wanted to. But I want to keep to just one colour. And I'm also going to do the same for this one and that one where I did some engraving on it, and that one. And there was another one I did some engraving on as well, with that one. And I'm going to do a variety of the different colours on these, and then I'll show you them when I'm done. So for this one, I've decided to use a pinch bail because that'll pinch in there really well with those holes. And I think that looks lovely. And then I can put a chain through that. This one, obviously, I'm going to wire wrap along with the rest of them. But some of them, the holes are nice sizes, and you can just add a jump ring to them. And it's really easy to put jump rings on things. I don't want to have large jump rings on them, but smaller ones should fit on there quite well, like that. So this one, I'm not going to wire wrap because I've painted it. I don't want to cover up the bit of painting I've done. So what I'm going to do is add one of these to it. And I'm going to be using an all-purpose glue like this to add it on with, and I'm going to be putting it on both sides. Now, I don't want to use super glue because super glue can become quite fragile once it has fully dry, and it can break off, and I don't want that. So what I'm doing is just adding a bit of this glue to both the stone and to the clasp, and I'm going to let that cure up for about 5 minutes on each bit before I then put them together. So that's now had its time, and I can pop that on there, and I want to make sure that I've got a really good grip with that. So what I'm going to do is just hold that together now for a few seconds until that's completely gone off, and wait for that to go fully hard, and then it should be okay. That should stay on there permanently. Threaded through the cord on this one so it hangs nicely like that, and on these ones all I'm going to do is pop another one of these through it. So I'm going to pop a jump ring on this one, and then I'm just going to decide how I finish the rest off, and I'll show you what they look like completely finished. I think they're going to look really pretty. I've finished these now, and I think they're really different to the things that I normally make. I'm not sure which one is my favourite. I'm not sure I even have a favourite. But what I will be doing is putting these on my next craft fair and selling them and seeing how well they go. I think they're going to sell quite well along with the wire wrapped jewellery that I'm going to do in a different video. That is absolutely a beautiful colour. I love that. And I quite like the way it's just casually put together rather than more official, I suppose. Especially that one which I've put a silver chain on. Check out the video that I've got coming up next. I think you'll really like that one as well. Boot that like button, hit that subscribe button, but most of all, enjoy your crafting. Take care. Bye.